the question, there are many questions, but I will focus on one of them, and this is the question of how we theorize the end point of the influence of imperialism on the development of criminal law. And there are different ways of theorizing this question. I mean, one approach would be informed by post-colonial and decolonial approaches that would argue that actually the supposedly post-imperial phase is best conceptualized, in terms of preservation through transformation, and many of the changes that we witness, for example, if you look at the transformation of European policies within the metropole, in France, in the UK, for example, so the arrival of mass migration from the ex-colonies entirely transformed, of course, the contours of English policing and French policing, and what we actually saw was the reproduction of the colonial relationship, of the relationship between the colonizer and the colonized within the metropole, within this new context. So this is one perspective. I think it resonates very nicely with approaches that we find in the United States and critical race theory. For example, a wonderful article by Ariel Gross, When is the Time of Slavery? She tried to show that at no point you can say, okay, slavery is ended. It's not the Emancipation Proclamation or even Reconstruction or even the Civil Rights era. There were always these remnants of slavery within the American landscape. So I figured this is an interesting approach, but it wouldn't be manageable, I think, for those who want to finish this book at some point. So I think that it would be wiser, indeed, as you say, to finish in an earlier historical moment. But even then, even if you choose an earlier historical moment, somewhere around the mid-century, there are many questions about how can we locate the end of the story, partly because of the uneven development of decolonization in different jurisdictions, but also because of the uneven impact of decolonization on different populations within each jurisdiction. So I think that I would assume that the story that we are being told about these, exchanges between judicial elites, and so we have the story about Oxford at Cambridge as some kind of hub when people from different colonies come and continue to exchange within a supposedly post-colonial atmosphere. Okay, so this is the upper floor, but in the lower floor or in the backyard, we find populations like indigenous populations in Australia that continue to experience their encounters with the police in a highly especially the same way as in the colonial era, and we can see the persistence of colonial mentalities against these populations at the same time in which the middle-class whites and certainly professional elites are moving toward the post-imperial phase. So it would be interesting to hear your thoughts about this question of the end point of the story.
Eli, that's such a good point.